Hey, Enrique. Welcome to the podcast. I'm really glad you can make it today.
Well, thank you for having me, Jacob.
Absolutely. Um, I wanted to ask how, just to catch all the audience and everybody else that's listening up to speed, how did we get to this podcast to begin with?
Well, it's been a long time coming, I guess. At work, obviously, when we get a couple minutes to sit down and chat for a little bit, obviously we have discussed politics, religion, and just overall good family values. And obviously, it's been a lot of fun working with you. And when two people kind of click, uh, there's always this interest and knowing more about each other, and that's kind of how we kind of started digging into this. And then you witnessed some of my others discussion with some of the other people as far as my political views. And anyway, that's kind of how all of this came to be. And then we agree on doing this because one of the main things I remember discussing with you is that I really would like to get something going as far as the Spanish speaking community, because right now what's out there, I mean, it's just so left leaning. There's really no conservative voices on the Spanish speaking community. And the one thing I was telling you, I wish I could find a way to start something, because I think it's so needed. And anyway, you brought up the fact that you had this podcast, and I'm like, well, and you invited me to, so I'm glad you did, because like I said, I'm not a public speaker, and my speaking abilities are, I mean, I don't make excuse for the fact that I have a really strong accent and English is my second language, but still, I mean, that's a fact. And I think that I appreciate the fact that you gave me the opportunity to come here and kind of practice a little bit and have some fun, kind of talk about our lives and what makes us tick. Yes.
Very good. Yeah, no, I'm very happy to give that to you. Growing up, for me, I know what it's like when people don't give you enough of a voice. And over time, if that continues to happen, it can be a rather irritating. So, and for others, when they do get a voice, maybe it's just they don't know where to actually project it. So in this case, it's nice because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get some long form discussion, which is the main positive of a podcast format. So all of those criteria are pretty slick. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's amazing with the tools that technology has given us. I mean, to have the ability to have discussion, uh, video discussion miles away. I mean, it's incredible. And I mean, it's technology. It has overpassed some of us, but I mean, people that have kept up with it is a really useful tool. And this is nice to. I mean, not in a million years back in the late '80s or '90s would I imagine having the ability to be able to put your voice out to the public for them to listen if they wish to, without having a major radio station show or television show. I mean, this is nice. I mean, yeah,
it's pretty cool because this is like the next step of the First Amendment, so to speak. Because
exactly.
if everybody can do this, then this is really cool. It gives every single person the means to be able to do some kind of long format where they can articulate what they're trying to say, and you don't have to worry about the cable news network kind of format where they've got you got 5 minutes to say what you need to say, and then we got to go to these other people, and then we're cutting the commercials, and
Yeah,
um, none of that. It's just we're going back to pretty much what humans were doing before all that, but now with the bandwidth to actually spread it to
yeah,
anyone who wants to hear.
yeah. And back to the First Amendment. To me, the scary thing about this whole thing that we're trying to do is, unfortunately, I'm afraid that if something doesn't change soon, and I know we're going to get into this discussion later on, but since you brought up the First Amendment and our ability to be able to do this, um, is we're in a really scary time right now because I mean, try to put any conservative anything that the tech giants disagree with. They're starting to they censor everything. So I'm really afraid that they're going to take this ability from us to be able to communicate and put out our ideas and try to change minds and try to change hearts. And that's the one thing I'm really afraid that's going to happen. Um, they disagree with you, will shut you down. You won't be able to publish anything. I mean, they done it to multiple people. I mean, a lot of them are kind of over the top a little bit, but nevertheless, if I choose to listen to them, if I choose to watch their show, it's up to me. It shouldn't be up to the tech giants to tell me what I can and cannot listen to or what ideas I should be exposed to.
Absolutely. And that's the coolest part about a lot of these long forms is that, yeah, it's not necessarily the mainstream yet, but eventually it might be. And
Yeah,
that's cool because you can just get your own uh, context and the like for multiple sides, and then we can actually have the discussion people have wanted to have without getting irritated. Because I know that's what happens in a lot of politics is that people just get
yeah,
irritated, and now it's who's gonna win versus who actually got all of their ideas out there to be criticized, hammered out, and eventually execute the best ones. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
something.
But we we do have to fight for that for our right, and that we do have to fight for that our ability to continue to do this. Um, because, like I said, unfortunately, the technology is owned by such a small amount of such a small group, and to me it seems like there's this it's like they come together and try to kind of filter what kind of information they allow through. So that's something that we the people need to fight. Um, Even if it comes down to breaking some of those big giants, I mean, and the smaller, more First Amendment orientated companies need to come up for us to keep having the ability to do this because otherwise, the way I see it, man, is scary times. I mean, I don't try to, I'm not trying to be a doom and gloom kind of a guy, but just what I've seen, it's just, it's completely, I mean, our technology has advanced a lot, but also their ability to control us has increased tremendously, and I'm really afraid that if we do not start speaking out and just making it known that hey, you might own this our ability to do this, but there could be someone else that come and take your place. There could be laws applied to your system that will make it more difficult for you to be a successful business like you have been for the past several years. So we do as conservatives and people that, and not necessarily conservatives, I mean, but people that are free thinkers, people that don't just want to be in this bubble. We need to start speaking up and making it known. Hey, we need to have the ability to have discussion. To, I mean, we can't all think alike. That'll be a boring life.
Agreed. And I think one of the best ways to practice and make people aware of these issues is by practicing the podcast format.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so let's get started then.
All
Today was
right.
going to be on cultural values, and we're going to do that, of course, by getting to know each other a little bit. Um, did you want to start with some of the background you have in Mexico?
Sure. So anyway, I obviously I was born and raised in Mexico back in the '70s, early '70s, and then so I just my life experience has always been a um, from the freedoms, from the ability to kind of express who you are. I never really felt like we had that back home. Um, I mean, I was telling you a couple conversations we had, kind of giving you my background and experience that I have as far as like the government, how oppressive, how just right down mean they can be. I mean, so I was born back in the 70s, and so through the years, 75, 76, kind of as far as I can remember, that's when the government really started cracking down as far as your ability to own weapons, your ability to basically be a free human. And just the economy, all of that, you throw that on top of everything else, it was just a really rough life. Um, and my hope was always to come out to the United States. That was going to be my way out. I mean, in Mexico, there's pretty much uh, you either become one of the biggest drug lords to be able to survive economically, you could end up in prison, or you can end up dead. Uh, the Especially where I grew up, there's really no industries you can live off. I mean, we did live off our land. I mean, we um, never owned anything till after we came out here. Was able to afford to buy something back home, but just there's really nothing to aspire to. There's no hope. Um, so that's when I I was able to come out here, and this this country has given me everything I have. It has made me who I am, um, financially, and I love this country. And I just, to me, it's so sad to see people who have no idea what they're talking about. Their constant hatred, their constant just disrespect for this nation. And I know we're not perfect in the United States. I know we had our history and everything else, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's any other country that you can have the same freedoms, liberties, and just your ability to grow as much as you can without being uh, completely destroyed by either the drug cartels who literally run Mexico right now. Um, so to me, it really irritates me when I hear people just completely badmouth in this country and just, oh, I move out, and they had no idea what they're talking about. And so yeah, that's kind of my history, my experience with governments, oppressive governments. And you think Mexico? I mean, everybody goes to Cancun, everybody goes to different places in Mexico to have fun. They have no idea the heart of the country, how just awful it is. I mean, back in the I think after they had the ability to disarm the citizens and took all the weapons away from everyone, the bad guys were running everything, and they're the ones that dictate everything. That, like, say, there's like say you think Mexico is just right there. It's a beautiful country to go to. Yeah, and the tourist areas, I'm pretty sure it is. Not where I come from. It's just not. My home state of Michoacan is that a couple years ago I read it was the most dangerous place in the world to be. I mean, and that's, I mean, you have a lot of these war torn countries, and you couldn't imagine that's how Mexico would be. But if my mom, my dad, when they were still alive, and my sisters even tell me that, nothing to get up to 10, 20 people hanging from the uh, electrical post, and people dismantle. And I mean, for that to be happening on a daily basis in just a small town is sad. And I know some they have tried to kind of gain control, but what the criminals do, they find out who the family members are of this politician is trying to change things. They threaten them if they don't listen. They literally will chop them down to little pieces if they just leave them there. and they kidnap. They do everything they can to stay in control. There's really no law and order. There's no protection. There's no hope. And like say, it makes it really difficult because they're so big right now that even they can even threaten the president of Mexico. They can threaten the senators. They can threaten the congressmen and mayors. And so it's just it. I'm glad I'm here. That's all I can say. If I would stay there, I would either I'll probably be dead by now. Yeah. So that was my experience coming from Mexico.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, that's not your typical response coming from another country, but I'll admit it's rather refreshing to hear somebody say the United States, for all of its flaws, has enough to offer that we should stop disrespecting it, cultivate it, make what you can of our land instead of trying to think that we're some horrible country that can't get anything right, um, and we're all that's just not true. They need to have a better reference. And
Yeah. Well, this is the way I see the United States. This is the land of opportunities. I mean, I I went to school in Mexico till the sixth grade. I was 11 years old the last time I went to school. I came here. Obviously, I was a farmer when I first came here, and it's difficult. I mean, I a lot of people think my English is bad right now. Back then, I couldn't speak any. I couldn't understand it. I had to rely on other people to help me with it. And I didn't go to school to learn to read and write. Everything that I know, I did it on my own. And to come from that to to be where I'm at right now, I mean, as as in this country, you can get as much as you want to work for. And I mean, I got into martial arts early on my back in the late 80s, and I started from nothing. I made it to got my black belt in different arts. I became a martial arts MMA promoter, kind of like the UFC for a lot of people that might be interested in it. I owned the second biggest organization, mixed martial arts organization in Northern California at one point. And again, um, a, a lot of the politicians, a lot of the people didn't agree with it. They tried to do everything to shut it down, and they made it as difficult as they could. But even at that, I was successful. Um, it just became so political, and the State Athletic Commission changed the head of the State Athletic Commission, and that they started making it so difficult to where, to me, they took all the fun out of it, and I decided to stop for a while. I mean, I'm contemplating once COVID stuff goes away to get back into it. But again, it goes back to this is the land of opportunities. This country. You work hard, you get out of it as much as you're willing to put into it, and that's just a fact. Because I have no business uh, being what I'm at as far as whether it be martial arts, whether it be so many aspects of my life. I own different restaurants. I own different businesses, and I've been successful at it. Going to Impact Fine Chemicals where I work at right now. I mean, you show up at Impact Fine Chemicals and what the hell am I doing here? But if if you have a good work ethic, if you had the just the ability to to show that you're interested in that job, if you really care for that job, you will learn it. You will excel. And to where I'm a cruise ship of operation right now, that's the highest level that you can go on the bargaining union side. In fact, I've been asked to become a supervisor, which I'm not. I don't have any interest because I think I'm more effective in the position I have right now. But again, it's the land of opportunities. The fact that I came from Mexico, I don't have a college degree. My English is pretty limited as far as the. I mean, I can speak and I can understand it. Um, I can read and write. But again, I don't have a college degree, and for someone without a college degree, for a foreign kid that came here when I was just a kid, to be in the position I'm at right now is incredible. I mean, I like, and I never would have been able to do it without the I don't even want to say that the help the United States. It's just the fact that the way I see it in the United States is like, here it is. You want to take it or you want to leave it. I chose to take it. A lot of people choose to take it. A lot of people, they choose to make excuses. They choose to become a victim instead of uh, fighting for what you want. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, and that victim mentality, that was something in our other side conversations we brought up. And it it sucks because if you embrace the victimhood thing, that means that your control and or drive, because there's a two-way street there, start to go down, and then you start leaning towards other people to do the work. And then you start going into the, well, it's not the individual's responsibility to make sure the health of America is better. Now you're starting to see that it's the government's problem only. And that's a recent issue. Because before, people thought in America, it is up to the town, or it's up to the individuals within the town to make America what it is. And I think people have forgotten that. And for me, coming from a small town, I'm going, man, small town, I mean, everyone's got something to contribute, however small it may be. But just by living in the town, if enough people do it right, you'd be amazed what the town can turn into. And also, in my case, if people do it wrong, same thing. It's not just for the government's responsibility to fix everything. There's this fair amount of individual responsibility the United States has promoted and demonstrated that's made it very different from other places.
Well, I think that the concept that a lot of people in different countries and even a lot of people in this country get wrong is that we look at the government as a like a separate um, group from us. The way I look at it, and the way because I have looked at the Constitution a little bit, and I mean I have studied the history of the United States. I think that what makes this country what it is right now is that the fact that we are the government. We are the ones that pick up the best people that we can find. We're supposed to pick up the best people that we can find to represent us. We've been doing a really poor job lately as far as our ability to do that. But the idea that a government is dictating down to you what you can and cannot do, to me, that's not a concept of this country. To me, that's what's wrong with Mexico. To me, that's what's wrong with a lot of this oppressive uh, governments. The fact that you elect them, they elevate themselves, and now they're dictating what you can and cannot do. It should be the other way around. And until if people don't get that right, if people don't realize the power that we as people have, believe me, it won't be long till we're back in Mexico or back in Venezuela or back in Cuba or you name it. Because a lot of these countries like Venezuela, I haven't really studied their history, but from what I understand, that they were a really rich country back in that 10, 15 years ago. And there, some people, again, took power a little bit too far and started using it for their own advantages and put it, next thing you know, the people don't matter. They own everything and they can dictate what the people can and cannot do. And to me, that's sad because it takes a long time to build what they build in the United States. It would be a matter of maybe a decade at most for this country to go down to where no one wants to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't understand why people even want the same kind of system that doesn't seem to work. And at the end of the day, I think everyone just we can disagree about some ideas and about how things get done in gov, but the end of the day, man, you need to be able to have a firm foundation to live in. Otherwise, it's just how many failed systems do we need to look at before we say enough is enough? And for me, the U.S. had an advantage to begin with, and that's good. But it wasn't just the advantage; it was the continual pressing of the opportunities that we had, and letting free market do its thing, trying to cultivate something of value, whether it's in industry or it's in medicine or whatever, and then having enough of those stacks of different avenues of opportunity and value that continues to be had. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at Google, I mean, and for what it's worth, I still like them on the whole, because what they did in the 21st century, on the whole, was good. They took the library system, where at first was local and you had to go and find books
Yeah.
and find information, and all of a sudden in 20 years, probably 20 years and some change, they took it where you could just get it from one computer that had access to the internet. And at the end of the day, I think that is still a very good thing, because now you've freed up so much time from all that searching to be able to actually
Yeah.
do something with the information.
Yeah, it is incredible that the minds that develop stuff. But again, it goes back to this country giving people the ability to excel to their maximal potential. Um, I don't think Google or Facebook or any of this tech giant would have been able to do this in any other country, just because the government will own what they have. The government will destroy what they were trying to build. And this country gives you the ability. You come up with an idea, you run with it, pay your taxes. It's yours. And like I said, I mean, a lot of the pharmaceuticals, a lot of a lot of the good stuff that we have, it was developed in this country. And you mentioned something. When are we going to stop trying stuff that have failed everywhere else? Well, back at the beginning of the United States, I was reading that initially some of the settlers they actually started with a like communist system, socialist system, to where we're all going to work the lands together. We're all going to do this together, and the governor, I forgot the name of the governor that was overseeing this the first people that came over. Started seeing that a lot of people were not interested in working. A lot of people there was no incentive for people to try to do better than anyone else, because everything's going to the same into this spot. Everybody gets whatever they want, they can get out of it. It's controlled by everyone. So finally, he decided, okay, this is your piece of land. This is your piece of land. You guys work it, do whatever you want. It's yours. And socialism was tried at the beginning of our time. It didn't work. Why are we trying to go back to it? That's just what I don't get.
Again, I think it goes back to that victimhood mentality that is being combined with the lack of taking personal responsibility on the local level, which it's kind of its own thing. But if you combine it with that victimhood culture and what people think about America being bad, and how the system is supposedly broken, people kind of lean that way because they think that's the way to go. But as far as an actual working system, I mean, for what it's worth, I don't know how anyone was able to get a GDP that high. Like, and I know it's kind of inflated with the way money works since the 1970s, because the money system is a little more based on trust than it is based on actual dollar. Where before it was based on the gold standard, where you actually had precious metals that backed the dollar system. Yeah. But now it's based on trust, value, what the country actually produces, and how they're helping the world all those things now contribute to the dollar. And that's kind of cool in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, back to this country. I mean, and that what is the opportunities that allows people is is like you see a company that is starting up. You can even buy a stock on that company. If that company takes off, you can make a lot of money. If that company goes south, I mean, obviously you lose some money. But again, you have the opportunity to risk some to gain a lot. Sometimes you lose some, but again, it's the fact that we had the ability to make those choices is incredible. I mean that, um, and I'm not saying that every other country is bad. Where I come from, the system of government is awful, but to have the freedoms and what we have in this country is incredible to me.
Couldn't agree more. And
Yeah.
I didn't always feel this way about the United States, but I was just sick of feeling like where I live is just terrible. And I go, well, how true is that? And I started asking. I go, well, actually, it's got a lot to offer, and it does have its problems. But on the whole, you'd be surprised what you can come up with if you just by taking a little bit of personal responsibility, having a little bit of forgiveness for what's been happening in the United States, and just say, regardless of these circumstances, there is still a foundation to build something in the United
Yeah.
States.
So Jacob, tell me a little bit about you. Where were you born? What was your family life coming up?
So I came from a small town, Porterville, California, and I was over there since 1992, really. Um, so 2010 was the last year I officially lived there the whole time, and I went up to UC Davis after that to be in chemical engineering. Porterville was a small town, and nowadays, I mean, it's not that small, but for what it's worth, it had the small town mentality. So what that means is
Yeah.
you have limited opportunity, but you also have a lot of you're not too into the news, right? The news that's affecting Porterville is not that much. I mean, it's like a tumbleweed rolls by and everyone's like, "Oh wow," you know, it's that kind of news. You know, the local high school just had their first football game and everyone's all stoked because there's not that much. You know, especially pre-internet. Pre-internet, that kind of thing would actually get people excited to
Yeah.
see just these little bits of news that are rather trivial, you know, today. Um, but then, as of course the world started to change and the world started to get smaller, you started to see, okay, well, there's more you can do in the town in some ways, you know, on your recreational time. But then on the professional side, so for occupation and the like, Porterville's it's going down. It's got a welfare issue. It's not okay, and it's got a community issue where people um, aren't able to have that collective unit. And what I mean by collective unit is, you know, multiple families that knew each other, and then they knew their father and their grandfather, and like they had that sense of, oh, I belong here. That small town feel is going away, and
Yeah.
it's kind of sad. I saw that coming when I was growing up, but for my own family, it was great. They said, no, we actually, for what it's worth, staying in Porterville was a good choice for them. For them, that was a good choice. No traffic, easy to get around town. They knew who their neighbors were on the whole, and there was a fair amount of trust within people. It was a collective unit, you know,
Yeah.
very cohesive, and but it's changing, and it's changing ever so fast, and to the point where it'll be unrecognizable by the time 10 years comes from now. Unrecognizable in the sense that in terms of culture, um, what the what the town offers is probably going to be about the same. I mean, work for the government or work for, you know, somebody downtown that's got a business, or
Yeah.
work in the fast food industry, or maybe work at a welding shop. I mean, there's not that much. Um,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's sad to see a lot of the smaller towns kind of like a lot of smaller towns that they used to be really dependent on the logging industry. And if you go up the coast, like all the way up to Idaho, Oregon, and even a lot of our like um, over in Jackson, California, or Eldorado Hills, there used to be some big sawmills up in Camino. And once the spotted owl came into the picture, and all these environmentalists started pretty much suing everyone and making the logging industry go away. It's just sad to see the destruction of a lot of these smaller towns that they rely on that for so many years. There's really nothing else going on, and what's your options? Start dead or get into welfare. I mean, in that the bad thing about it is that once you taste it, this is not so bad. I mean, I have to go to work again. I can maybe work at a gas station couple of days a week, and then get my welfare check. And pretty soon you become uh, reliable on the government, and next thing you know, you're stuck there for life. You become a slave to the system. And yeah, it's sad to see a lot of those smaller towns just kind of wither away. And man, this is not what it used to be. It used to be fun to come through here. The economy was booming. There was a lot going on. And next thing you know, it's kind of dying out. But it's, I guess, like everything else, you have to um, adopt or die. I mean,
absolutely.
I think a lot. Can you still see me, Jacob? Sorry.
There you go. There you go. How's your battery life?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, lost you there for a minute. But yeah, it's one of those things that also we talk about Christian values. We talk about obviously our how we were brought up and stuff like that. So you come from a was your Christianity something that you grew up with, or is it something that you uh, came to you later in life?
So it's interesting enough. So we started in the church in the '90s, and then problems with the church have been happening forever. But I mean, in this particular case, this one church, um, their local pastor was having issues for like from '97 to '99, as far as I can remember, and eventually it came to a head in 1999, and the pastor quit. Well, at that point, the whole church cohesive unit thing started to break down pretty quick because typically what ends up happening in a church breakdown is the people who are most invested with the pastor may just quit the church to go somewhere else. So what that does is it throws the whole service system up in the air, and it pretty much is a big restart. And for my folks, that was a yeah, we're out. We're not doing this anymore. And it's kind of a strange way to grow up because about that time I'm starting to actually pay attention and start seeing what the church was about. And then it kind of got cut short. And I didn't know why, but my folks said no, we're not going anymore. And when I found out later, and this was years later, they were just working them, and they described it as a second full-time job. And what that meant was they were getting taken advantage of, which isn't that's totally not the church method. That's not it.
Yeah.
The church is voluntary. It's not involuntary.
Yeah,
So
it has to come out of your heart.
and it was coming from obligation. And man, Jesus said over and over again, it's not about obligation. As sacrifice is one thing, but at the end of the day, I think God really wants obedience, and obedience being I gave a law, but you also have been redeemed because you can't fulfill it on your own. And That idea didn't really show up again until about 2005. So about 7 years later, um, I I looked into it and I was very surprised because it kind of just showed up one day. Sometimes when people are growing up, all of a sudden it's like a light bulb moment where
Yeah.
your conscience really gets on you, saying, "What are you doing?" And that I believe that to be God inspired, and that definitely made me think about what's my life, what is it, why am I doing what I'm doing. That was the main thing. Where are your intentions? Are they in place? Are they placed properly? And after that, I went into a painstaking task of, okay, I need to make sure that what I'm believing actually has grounds and for who I am spiritually. So when all else is taken away, um, that is secure. And
Yeah.
that sense of forgiveness too. That's probably what this world needs more than anything else, especially right now. I mean, right now it's just people can be so vicious to each other,
Oh yeah.
and Jesus, the way the gospel works is it's just not like that one bit. I mean, he is trying to prevent people from turning in on themselves and turning against people, but people people hate God, dude. That's probably the one thing I've noticed more than anything else this last 5 years. If you mention God, they just get outraged and
Oh yeah.
they just can't stand it. And I think the reason why they get that way or they go neutral is that they legit just think that God put us here and we're just gonna suffer and um, He's gonna judge us anyway if He exists, and then we're gonna all be damned. And I think that's the mantra people really believe. And then they use His name in vain because they think that out of spite or just out of habit. And I look at that and I just go, man, people just hate this God figure, even though they think he doesn't exist. And I'm going, dude, that tells me a lot about people. That tells me that they really just hate God and they don't want to admit it. So,
Yeah.
and it's really sad to see because the forgiveness aspect, that is probably the most powerful thing we can do to reconcile people. And it's just not happening.
Yeah. I think uh, a lot of people that depend on what religious background or how their parents raised them. A lot of people have a tendency to just rebel against whatever, just go the opposite of how they were brought up. And I think you start a trend that direction, and next thing you know, a couple of generations started going completely the opposite of how they were even raised, just based on rebellion. I was raised Catholic um, in Mexico. Came out here and then I met my wife, and I started going to her church, and her dad was a Baptist minister, and I came from I mean I think kind of back from for the Catholic Church. Um, I think that Catholic Church was such a giant that a lot of smaller branches spread out of there. So I think we owe a lot to the Catholic Church, but it's just that to me it was, yeah, you believe in Christ, you accept Christ, and but everything is just um, so staged. Like there's no like really. I never really felt like the life, like the passion, like the desire to go back to church. Started going to this church, and then it's like I felt this the spirit just moving me, and it's like a completely different atmosphere. And I was baptized later as a Christian, because I was baptized as a baby as well, but on the Catholic Church. But it's just like so different. Um, it's like in the Catholic, at least for my experience was mechanical, like kind of something kind of detached from you. When when I started going to this church, everything became more personal, and just like everything else, like you said, people start fighting over that and this. People start getting greedy and about that, and just eventually that church completely fell apart. Um, and my father-in-law, they ended up moving up to Idaho, but which I think I think he's preaching up there, but he was a really good pastor, really good family values, and but a lot of people jealousy or envy or whatever they it's like people can never just be. They always have to have their little conflicts going, and that's everywhere. I mean, even
Yeah.
even every job has this little cliques, and people can't just show up and do their job and just go home. There always has to be drama. There always has to be some kind of fighting against someone else, and it's just. I guess that's just life. Yeah.
Apparently, and it's just it makes me sad when I see that because that's just not anything what Jesus wanted. Period. I mean, he's kind of that. Well, he not kind of he when he shows up in a church, and I mean the idea of him, his practices, the law, his demonstration of it when he would not just when he did miracles or anything, but when he really just made people face reality. And he said, "You're not gonna be able to make it that way. Like, stop trying to only do it by works alone. I mean, you can't. There's just too much of a weight there. You need to have some kind of redemption. And in the case of redemption that Jesus is offering, he's talking about the complete look, rely on me, you'll be okay. Because
Yeah.
only Jesus has the means to be able to hold up that weight. And humans keep trying to do it over and over again. We keep trying. We keep trying to be redemptive enough on our own, and that's not what Jesus said at all. He said, "No, that you're by being a Christian, you're dependent on me. So
Yeah.
stop trying to lift the church all on your own. Oh, we gotta get 50,000, in the next month to pay the rent or and pay all the ministry fees and ministry services." And
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of people are getting tired of that too because they want to go back to how it was in the first century, where it was local, it was small, you trusted the people that you were with, and
Yeah.
there was that sense that everyone had a say. Um, Whereas some big churches, it feels like you don't have a say, and that kind of blows because really, the church is. I mean, we're all equal in the eyes of God, man. Once you're all redeemed at this point, it's you're all working together for good service to God, and uh,
Yeah.
there's that sense of building everything up together, and really, just a lot of people, yeah, like that greed and strife that destroys anybody though. People mistake that. They think, oh, they did a church. I'm like, nah, it actually destroys a lot more than that. Destroys companies, destroys families, destroys countries. It just so happens to destroy churches too. Um,
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, I think it needs to be like a community effort. Like I remember when I was going to this Pleasant Oak Baptist Church, it's like everybody that you see, you like the people. I mean, you really had like the family friendship going. The pastor never really tried to try to do different stuff to entice or cater to different groups. He just came preach the gospel, and uh, that was it. And it was real. It was genuine. It was you felt it. And after he left, went to different churches, and it's like they have this rock band to cater to the rockers or the people, or they they do so many stuff to try to cater to everyone else. And I'm looking at it, it's like this doesn't remind me of anything that I'm familiar with. I mean, are we here to cater to people or to cater to God? I mean, um, and I just it's sad to say, but ever since my father-in-law left, I have gone to different churches, and I just don't feel the same. I don't know, like the spirit's not there in the church, and like you're just going to an empty building because if God's it's not there, and I'm not saying it's not there. I feel like they're more interested in like I was saying, catering to the different people to get bigger groups, and now you have to 5, 6 different groups you have to please, and it's like they're not 100% just preaching the gospel and reading straight off the Bibles. Like they always have this side shows going on to entertain people, and to me that's unfortunate.
It's a disservice to the pulpit, and
Yeah,
there's a respect factor that used to come with that because people would say, that's you're representing um, a very long line of pastors who have decided not what I think, but what God thinks, and I'm going to make sure that the congregation understands that, and
yeah,
it's not about groups, man. I mean, that Corinthians said it's like not about tribe, tongues, nations. It's none of that. We're all one. But
yeah,
the thing is, though, a lot of people don't want to be that. They want to be in the church, and then, well, it's really more about the social aspect. And I go, what the heck, dude? I mean, I wouldn't do that for a church in a way. It's there for you're there for God. You're there for the sense of what He has done in people and the service that comes from that. And I mean, you go there to worship, of the divine being that He is, and it's not anywhere for like I'm not going there for
yeah,
a rock concert, which that was the other thing I started seeing more of, and it's sad, because then you don't just see like just a rock concert, you see like the three people that actually care that are in the audience, and you see like the spirit working in them, and I mean like actually like they're there for the right reasons, but then you just see this whole crowd of people that they're just there for the show, and
yeah,
that when you kind of see that enough, I mean, people get skeptical of church altogether. Um,
yeah,
but that's the wrong metric. I've gone down that road before where I think, well, everyone's just faking it. Nah, no, they're not. You'd be surprised what real Christians are out there, and that's because it's not them. It's what Jesus did in them is now working, and now you're seeing it progress in their life. And
yeah,
but people need to quit the greed stuff. It's hard because the sin is, as you said earlier, addictive. Um,
yeah,
One taste, and then you just want to keep having it. But
yeah,
I'm hoping one day we'll start doing more of like now that we've got like this kind of long form discussion, maybe even church for some people that can't even go on Sundays. They may be
yeah,
able to have a way to be able to meet up that's genuine, and they know that they've got other Christians that are grouped together to get through life with, and uh, pretty much nail all their inefficiencies out on sanctification, because that's the thing, like a lot of people don't want to do that, but I think that is exactly what the church should be doing. So instead of, well, I don't want to upset that person because the last time I talked to him about it he didn't want to deal with it, it's like, no, actually it says you bring a second person and talk to them about it in love, so that way they can come back and it's not hindering them from
yeah.
church. So
Yeah, and I sure pray to God that this COVID stuff doesn't destroy the I mean the churches, because obviously they have to have some income to survive, to sustain. I mean, they have to pay the rent, they have to pay the lights, and they have to pay. Um, but it just seems like a lot of politicians are using this COVID issues just to either destroy small businesses, destroy churches, because I mean, you can go anywhere with groups of people. I mean, yeah, wear your mask and everything, but you can't go to a church. You can't go to eat in a restaurant. It the destruction that this thing has brought, I mean, just incredible. And to me, it just seems like they're targeting certain. It's like you're a huge business. you need to stay open because you're essential. You're a small business, small grocery store. You sell the same stuff the bigger stores sell, but I'm sorry, you have to be shut down.
Yeah, that's been a
And
whole other can of worms. I'll admit. Yeah, that's kind of
yeah,
strange.
and again, this people are literally being penalized for even trying to have this parking lot services on the churches. That's just it's insane, and I hope we don't stand for this destruction of the because you got rid of you got rid of guns, you got rid of churches. There's nothing left for to bring in the stability to the system. I mean, as bad as some churches might be, um, they're still bring the stability needed to the community, um, and it's needed. I mean, I think if there's anything essential, it should be our relationship with God, and you take that away from us. I mean, yeah, and that, like they say, well, you can talk to God directly if you believe in God. It's like it's yeah, we can, but again, without the bigger body bringing us together, I think that eventually everyone will just go their own direction. Next thing you know, everybody forgot about God, and and that there won't be the unity, the desire to come together and worship God, and it just seems like a lot of politicians are deliberately targeting that aspect of our lives.
Yeah, I would even go to the extent that it's not even just about church going against that; it's going against anything they don't like. And
Exactly.
church just so happens to be in the way because it's been in the way for a long time. I mean, we want to make sure that people who have this aspect of their life, we don't like it, we're just going to chuck it. Oh, I don't like this small business, we're going to chuck it. Oh, I don't like what's going on over here. Well, the problem with that mindset is they don't know what good it's contributing, and then you just cut out this whole line of people that were doing something good, bad, neutral, whatever, but typically something good, and now they're going to be doing something else because oh well the government said I can't do this, and that's just so anti-American, really. I mean, most people, if they've got something that matters, like, and for a lot of people church really does matter to gather, like psychologically they see God through people, like
Yeah.
through the body they can see God clearly, and people forget that. They're like, oh well, you can have an individual. It's like that's true. That will always remain, but the actual way the church works is, I mean, you will see a clearer picture of God with the body. That's just the way it goes. I mean, they say that in the New Testament. It's a thing. Um, but they don't want to have respect for that. They want to have respect for a lot of things, but mainly it's the control factor. They have tasted what actual control looks like, and I don't think they're gonna want to give it up either. Now,
Well, we
hopefully,
have to fight for it.
yeah, hopefully people get smart and they say, regardless of what's going on, this is what we're fighting for. This is what we're gonna stand for, in a peaceful way, where their control doesn't have that itch that they want to use it anymore, or less, and not anymore, but I'd say mitigate that power that they're trying to grab onto. And it's up to us to really exercise some of that. And one of the ways is, okay, if church isn't happening, man, we got to find a way to do a fallback position. So in my case, it's been don't just do nothing. So there are some Bible studies out there that use Zoom. Find people like John MacArthur who are on YouTube, who are preaching the word all the time, and they've got a whole video library. There's still the physical book that people won't burn yet, which thank God. They won't burn the Bible yet, so hold on to yours. And there's still things we can do to fend this and not worry about, oh, the government's going to crush us all on the religious end. And usually the way it works is, I mean, you remember what happened the first century. They tried to crush Christians. It didn't work. It just made it more popular.
Well, in Mexico, I think I was talking to you about this couple days ago. Back in I think it was 1926, 2025.
Yeah.
That's when the government outlawed Christianity. Um, Basically, you were not allowed to worship in the church. In fact, you were not even allowed to worship anywhere. And the government came down so strong to just to the point where they were executing priests and anybody that did not denounce the name of Christ. Like I told you that the name of the movie for I think for a better glory or something to that effect. It's a pretty good depiction of what actually happened, and the government, um, the president just to say he was completely anti-Christianity, completely anti-religion or Catholicism, and he went out and this complete destruction of anyone that did not denounce the name of Christ. But back back to the issue, if you want to destroy a country, you have to take their religion, their Christianity, or whatever they might believe on, and you have to take their guns. They tried to take Christianity away from Mexico, but they hadn't taken away the guns. So guess what? All these people came out of the woodworks with whatever little weapons they have, machetes, whatever they could get their hands on, and started fighting back. I mean, it was a bloody war, and it's sad because you hear about like the Pancho Villa days, Emiliano Zapata, a lot of the people that from the beginning were trying to fight for the citizen, trying to fight for a better life, but nobody knows about this Christian war that happened in Mexico. Uh, you'd be surprised how little this um, is like Cinco de Mayo. It's a huge day in Mexico. I mean, out here in the United States, in Mexico, it's like it's just a minor little dot on the map. Um, but there was several wars that really had history rich in Mexico. And the Christian War was one of them. And like I say, there was so many people slaughtered. So many people they were out for the complete destruction of the church. And to me, the saddest thing about it, if you look back in history, is that Rome, the Pope, he didn't back the Christians. He was like almost a distant bystander. He didn't put any political pressure to anyone for that to stop. Even the United States, I mean, they did somewhat try to um, kind of guide the government to a different direction, but they really didn't do much either to try to help the poor citizens that were fighting for their survival. And it's like everyone turned their backs on them. Kind of meant because, like say, back in at that time, people were still allowed to own guns. Mexico wouldn't have any kind of form of religion or Christianity at all right now, but they fought back like in the name of God, and God definitely was on their side because to overcome the massive uh, troops and uh, just a massive. I mean, as far as the weaponry that they had was night and day, but again, that the people knew their towns, the people knew their areas, and they were able um, to overcome the aggression that the government was throwing at them. Luckily, back then they didn't have airplanes, they didn't have all the everything that they have right now. But again, if you want to change a country, you take their guns, you take their religion.
And you take their
Uh,
speech.
yes, and right now, what I'm seeing in this country, and it kind of really saddens me, is that they're out for your guns. Right now, they're out for your speech, and definitely want to get rid of religion. And it it goes back to like we were talking family values. Uh, at some point, there has to be a stability. Not everybody has to believe the same. Not everybody has to be the same. But there has to be a core group that kind of keeps everyone together. It's like even on families, you have your core group, and then you have that son that goes kind of off onto his own for a while, and eventually the I think the family group and everything, eventually they might come back to it again and kind of rejoin it. If you destroy the core of our values, there won't be nothing for anyone to go back to. And I mean, it's going to take a long time to rebuild everything that they're trying to destroy. And I think that that's why it's so critical for us to really, before we become Mexico, we become um, some of these other more socialist countries, to really look at history and see how everything starts. And like you say, you take the guns, you take the religion, you take freedom of speech, you're done as a country. I mean, there's nothing, because the the one thing the government don't like is criticism. They don't. They're so egotistical, and they don't like to be criticized. And sometimes criticism kind of keeps them from really going to the deep end. Um, Kind of keeps them at bay. And if they're able to take freedom of speech, if they take the ability from us to communicate the way we're doing right now, I mean, they take Facebook, they take Twitter, they take if they gain control of everything, which they're pretty close to doing, I think as like I was saying, technology has grown so much, and we have become so reliable on it that almost without it, it's like it would be kind of like me trying to go to work without a car. I mean, yeah, I can walk, but it'll take me 2 days to get there. So, like we have become so dependent on technology that, and there's such a huge monopoly on it right now that if we don't kind of try to fight for what's fairness and what or come up with different systems, it's going to be a matter of time. And I'm just seeing how much censorship that there is right now, and we really back to family values. If we want our families, if we want our grandkids and our next generations to enjoy what we were able to enjoy, we need to fight for it, because I mean, someone fought for us to have what we have right now, whether it be fighting World War I, World War II, and all these other wars, um, which a lot of them, I mean, people have their own opinions about it, but I think we got ourselves in a lot of conflicts that we maybe didn't have any business getting into, and a lot of people pay the price. I mean, you have so many people coming back without arms or legs, and just because we decided, hey, we don't like this dictator, so let's go and topple him. Um, I, I, I hate to say it, but I think every country need to look out for their best interest, and I think it's time for our country to really to take care of what we our needs. I mean, they spend billions and billions of dollars on, on aid for on countries that hate our guts, and we kind of neglect our own citizens. So, I I really believe that just like people fought for us, gave up their lives, uh, the least we can do is kind of voice our opinions and fight to the extent that we can to be able to keep what we have, because like I say, it's just a matter of time uh, till they take our freedom speech, our guns, and our ability to even say that we're Christians or whatever religions people might have.
at the very least advocate for. If we get lucky, we can just talk about it, and then people might back off. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. Yeah, for one thing, that and there's always talk like of the John Locke principles of life, liberty, property. Um, that's what people all should have for a foundation, at least for as an aspiration, and to exercise when possible. Um, but man, I gotta say, it's we already have such a great backbone. We just need to get it actually practiced. Get it practiced. First
Yeah.
Amendment. You have the freedom of speech. Some of the liberals have something good to say. Conservatives have good things to say too. Let's see if we can hash out the ideas so we can get the best answer. Because we need to be able to have a running system. And to say that all the liberals suck is just, I don't think that's true. I went to school with a
No,
lot
it's
of
not.
great liberals.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I think liberalism is what kind of gave us. They were so uh, freedom of speech was like their um, backbone that liberals have or had. Um, but it's just sad now nowadays all this culture, cancel culture that it's like everybody wants to get themselves into a bubble. They don't want to hear anything that might offend them. They don't want to hear anything that might make them feel comfortable. And to me, it's not that you go out there with the intention of insulting anyone. I mean, but to me, I don't agree with not wanting to hear something that I might disagree with. In fact, I like that kind of stuff. I like to. I mean, I'm a strong conservative, and like I was telling you, I always been a conservative, but I think listening to Rush Limbaugh and a lot of conservative uh, pioneers, it kind of established the fact that man, they sound a lot like because I used to kind of lean more like Democrat, and started listening to them and like that's more what I am. I'm pro-life, um, uh, pro Second Amendment. Obviously, I love to have the ability to speak my mind, and which that's where the First Amendment comes. And but even being a strong conservative, I still like to listen to people I disagree with. I still enjoy listening to people that completely opposite what I believe, and that strengthens my belief or changes me a little bit. Changes my it might have the ability to not to be so radical in certain aspects, but if anything is presented in a way to in a persuading way, it will either really strengthens you who you are, or you can say maybe I'm not so right on this issue. Maybe maybe I need to line up a little bit. But we all need to be exposed to different ideas. We all need to be because you live in this bubble, and it's like not never being exposed to any harsh conditions out in the weather. I mean, if you're always in this bubble of safety, you go out there, and guess what? Now you don't know what the heck you're doing. You have to be street smart. I mean, uh, you're not always going to have your mom and dad that you fall back on. You're not always going to have this government to fall back on. I mean, governments are just like any other company or any other industry. They can go upside down real quick, and then what? So we need to be exposed to different ideas. We really need to know who we are, know what we believe, know why we believe what we believe, and learn to be who we are. It's not like I don't I don't judge anyone for not believing that what I believe. In fact, a lot of my best friends are liberals, people that and when I say liberal, I mean people that the way liberal used to be, not this radical. If you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to beat you down and uh, give you a brain injury. But people that actually believe what liberalism used to be, which I think that's kind of what conservative is now. the the ability to speak your mind and say what you want to say. Obviously, uh, like I say, you don't have to be out there deliberately insulting people. Uh, I think that there needs to be mutual respect back and forth, but there has to be different ideas. That's the way I see it.
It's a good way to sum it up. And I had something that came up with last night. That was a good example to what you said of being exposed to ideas I'm not comfy with. So I'm usually pro military, but I do understand that in the 21st century, the way we've been rolling with big army, we got to change our tactics. As much as I appreciate what they do, I'm starting to now lean to okay, the way we did stuff for typical like country invasions and such, like what happened in Iraq 2003. That was about the point when we started seeing like, okay, maybe we should start thinking about how we do it differently. But the good news is, I think we kind of have an idea of how we're going to start doing it, which is more on the country's relationship front, some more diplomatic things, so that way we're not even in the country shooting it up to begin with. But in the event we have to go there, let's say we can make it more surgical. So instead of having an artillery brigade that's going to blow up half of like Iraq, let's instead take special forces units and go in there and do a very small cut. Take out the people that are actually causing the issue instead of like doing what Fallujah did, and it's just this big war zone. Now, granted, of course, back in the mid 2000s, Iraq was very different. But the way Big Army has changed over the last 20 years, I think we can start getting to a point where more surgical. You don't have to do it where Big Army's doing police work in the Iraqi streets. Now, granted, 2005 is a totally different game. In 2015, though, you started seeing. You started seeing a lot of changes over even this last 10 years, really. So that was an idea I was challenged with the other night. I wanted to share that with you because at least that was something I go, you know what? Maybe that wouldn't be the worst idea. Start backing off on big invasions to all these countries and instead focus on maybe we can do some more surgical strikes. And we already have proof of this. We're already doing it. It's just you don't hear about it. And that's the way it should be. You don't want to hear about all these like special forces operations. That's a lot of it's, black files. Can't really see it.
I think if there's something I kind of like about Donald Trump is his philosophy when it comes to wars. Basically his doctrine is, I'm gonna leave you alone. You screw with us, and I find that it is you who did it. I'm gonna strike you where it hurts. And no, I am not going to send my sons and daughters out there to fight this war that's pretty much never ending. I'm going to hit you where it hurts. So here's the deal. I'll leave you alone, but you do something and we find out that you're the one that did it, we're going to come with it. Kind of like we did to Soleimani and some of the brutal killers that we're taking out. I like you said, if he's hit him where like surgically, I'm gonna come after your head. I'm gonna try not to kill any of your citizens. But that's the one thing that I completely, it just bothers me. They send our kids to war, and then they put all these rules. Well, you can't shoot if they're shooting from a mosque. You can't do this if they're doing that.
Rules of engagement. Yeah.
It's like, to me that's so absurd. I mean, those people don't even. They were deliberately getting into clinics or schools or using kids as human shields just so because now they know our rules of engagement. It's like war is ugly. You want to go to war, you have to be prepared to be the most evil person in the world if it comes to that.
Or brutal, maybe.
War, you go to war because you want to win this war, or don't go to war at all. If you're not prepared to, I'm not I'm not advocating for chemical weapons or nuclear or any of that. But if you send our sons and daughters to war, you can't tie their hands on how they're going to fight. Yeah, there needs to be some um, like you shouldn't be torturing people that you capture. You shouldn't be. I mean, obviously, you be as humane as you can without killing people. That you should only be going after the military side of the um, and not the citizens. But unfortunately, like I say, you go to war because you want to destroy something, and you want to destroy that something and whatever else surrounding it. I mean, that's just the fact of life. Or, like you said, it should be more precise. Like if I want to go to war against Russia, I'm gonna hit like freaking capital and try to end it right there.
Right there, instead of it being this long drawn out thing. And I think everyone's in agreement. That's not a good idea. But you could also argue back in the when things were really bad in 2001, we were ready to just blow up Iraq, make it happen, to go over to Afghanistan, make it happen. Wherever they are, we're going to make it happen. But then people kind of get going, well, why are we still there? 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. That's when people started having an issue. But when we first got there, oh yeah, it's game on. But then the rules of engagement thing, they've gotten a little bit better with that. There's always going to be some level of discussion on how that's going to go because the mission's going to be, it's some of it's going to be mission dependent, some of it's going to be country dependent. But for sure, I'm looking forward to it when it's going to be more surgical, and then people will be more willing to again discuss and make the countries work instead of okay, we're going to send the United States government to just take over this one little country. Boom. Okay, well that's fun and all, but that's also not efficient. Maybe if we can just get their country to work, and we've been trying to learn this. The last 20 years. I mean, the United States military is not trying to just drag these things out forever. Maybe some are, but in general, I think people are kind of getting the message. Yeah, if we can figure out how to do peacekeeping missions better, we're all ears. It's just it's tough. It's not easy. And then someone was bringing this up. I think it was Jocko, and on his podcast, he was talking about how it's not. And I think he was talking with Dan Crenshaw. The
Yeah.
one of the congressmen from Texas. So he's an ex Navy SEAL. So they're talking about SEAL stuff. And one of the things that he says that a lot of people don't get is that there are some radicals out there that are so bent on just destroying the United States. Like they hate us. They hate us because they hate us. So,
Yeah, but go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, okay, yeah, and people need to understand that that is not logical. They are willing to do the plane thing again. They just so happen to have not done it in a while. And we've gotten better at security in some ways, but there's still a lot of different plans they've got. And at this point, we almost have a no less than criteria to make sure that, because we can't go back to isolationist. This ain't 1921. We can't do that anymore. I think
Well,
people,
I think that's where intelligence needs to come in.
right,
I mean, we need to monitor all these people that are trying to do harms to the United States, and like you say, surgically go and take them out. Um, I think when our special forces, um, our intelligence, they need to stay out of politics, and they need to focus 100% on what their job is,
on the
which
mission.
is make sure that anyone who's out there trying to do us harm, investigate it, nail it down, and let's take them out. Uh, like you said, I think all this not nowadays you go to war and there's so many rules of engagement, and it's a joke how they want, and all of this policing of different countries. I don't think it's effective at all. Like say, yeah, go down there, do whatever damage you want to do, get out, and let's see what happens. If they want to retaliate, that's why you have your special forces. That's why you have your intelligence. That's why you have people that that's what their job should be, to be out there, be our eyes and ears, and then take out the problem once you identify it and you know 100% that that's what we need to do.
You
Take them
bet.
out.
And I'm glad we got to have this part. I don't think we were planning on it, but this is cool because a lot of people like to think they know everything about what's going on overseas. And I'm going, dude, there's no way I know everything that's going on overseas. And if you talk or have a degree of separation with some of the guys that do, we'd have a better idea of, okay, maybe I was wrong about how much people actually hate the United States.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that actually is a thing. So it would be wise for people who think that, oh, we just need to get everybody back home. This is stupid. It's not that simple anymore. People really are that close to just flying on a plane, or they're already inside our borders and trying to do something that would be crazy on the terrorist side. Like there's people who really want to do us harm, and
Oh yeah.
we've done. And I think the military, they've done such a good job in some ways of keeping the place safe from just from terrorists in general. Um, that people have gotten this false sense of security, and I think we need to be careful about a lot of that, and that's why we had this discussion about freedom of speech and some of these other things about taking away firearms. Like, don't think that the government's doing it in your best interest, because they're not. They're doing it for their interests, and
Yeah.
that's not good. Because the way the United States government should be is it's civil service. It's not they rule over you. It's we elect people to do the services of running the country.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, did you serve in the military?
Me? No,
Yes.
no, no.
You did.
I did not. I went to chemical engineering school for engineering school in 2010, and I graduated in 2014 at 22, and then I went over to my first job at a school was working for Schlumberger, and I was working as a field engineer for them up in Williston, North Dakota during the big fracking thing.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of good experience there. Um, wow, there's some companies that are really big. They are really efficient. You'll see the lumbering giant syndrome sometimes, but
Yeah.
on the whole, manufacturing is hard. Doing
What
this,
what guided you to engineering, chemical engineering? I mean, there had to be something there that you said, "Oh, this is what I want to do." What was it?
we were talking about the same thing. Opportunity. That's it. Opportunity. I figured,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna do something really tough that I have some of an interest in, and I'll make it happen. And it wasn't even about, oh, I want to do process design specifically, because I didn't know anything about that till I went to the school. At
Yeah.
first, I thought I'm gonna go work for the guys over in the Mojave Desert, and we're gonna make some stuff to make sure that no one hurts the United States ever again. I thought about doing that kind of stuff, helping like the U.S. Marines and Navy make their next best stuff that they were going to
Yeah.
use for, let's say, World War III or whatever. Because I was 18, I didn't know what was going on. But in the
Yeah.
event that someone wanted to hurt us, I figured, that'd be a good industry to go to. So I picked it. And I even talked to them. I even found out who these guys were over in within the defense industry. But then I started thinking about, well, there's actual stuff you could do that's civilian, and I go, well, okay, so let's do. There's civilian work in the oil field, pharmaceuticals, consumer products, and I started seeing, oh, there's a lot more options than I thought. And I go, okay, well, it doesn't have to be military based, which you can work as civilian for those a lot of those contractors. Um, but after a while, I said, it would be cool to see what's going on up in Williston. It'd be the adventure that I've wanted to have for a long time. And then I had mentees at the time. They're going, oh, what do chemical engineers do? So I was going to go, and pretty much my life would be an example for them. And I can say, hey, here's some notes that I took from the field. Here's what I did. And I could relay it to them in real time. So I thought that was cool because then while they're in school still, younger than me, they can get some real life experience that's being handed to them as I live through.
That's the one question I wanted to ask you. Obviously, you have a lot of strong Christian values and family values. How the heck do you get to college and came on the other end still somewhat conservative in family values and strong Christian values, being that they went to a private one was liberal colleges out there. Maybe not as bad as Berkeley, but
Yeah, Berkeley, they're on another tier anyway, regardless. But so I'm glad you asked because that's actually more of a complex question. You may not know this either. So you told me about the Christian War of 1926 over in Mexico. That's something that people don't normally know. So here's something else that you may not know, or people who are not used to the university environment. So before 2014, university was different than it is now. So let's get something straight about that. So the university now is very different from when I went to school. Wow. So in 2014, you started seeing the changes. And I didn't even know what they were at the time. I was just like, oh, okay, there's going to be some more, like, safe spaces showed up in 2014. And like, hey, this is a hate-free zone. And I go, well, I mean, I'm thinking at first, yeah, all right, cool. I mean, just, keep it clean, And I didn't mind that at all because I'm going, okay, they're just making sure that no one's getting bullied, and I'm going, I'm anti-bully. That makes sense. Let's do that. But then when I found out what they were really for, I'm going, oh dear, this is like freedom of speech. Like they're trying to crush that. I'm going, oh, no, okay, whoa, and now that I didn't know it was going to turn into that. At first, I'm thinking it's for something else because you don't know. I mean, at first, you didn't see all the protests and stuff. The only protest I saw in school was the pepper spraying incident in 2011.
Yeah. I remember that one.
So I was coming out of linear algebra at the time, and it was one of our math classes, and I'm coming out, and I'm seeing the after effect, and I didn't see the spraying. I saw the all the chanting and stuff to make the police back down after the spraying. I remember looking at our friends and just going, let's go home. We don't have to see this. And we did. I'm really glad we did because everyone in my family's calling me, oh, were you pepper sprayed? And it's just, okay, this is the media trying to look like the whole school got sprayed. No, it was just that one line. It's that, okay, I'm not locking arms with these people. So, but Davis, that was radicals, that wasn't the representative of the school.
Yeah.
So I went to school with some great liberal friends who are still rather unaffected from all this current radical nonsense. Like they're just the same. Because again, they too avoided the radical behavior and ideology that started showing up about 5 years ago. So we came out unscathed for the most part. Now, granted, anti-Christian sentiment. Now, you hit that on the head. That was still there. Plenty.
Yeah.
You had, and in order to survive, you still had, there were Christian groups. So I found one called, Christian Grad Fellowship was something I found afterward. But while I was there, it was called College Life Christian. And College Life, for short, was just we meet on Tuesday nights, worship God, there'd be a sermon. We had church Sunday morning that we go to, and through that was my communal avenue, and that wasn't shut down. I mean, there's plenty of other groups at the time too. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was one it was for everything, medical students, Christians. There were multiple different groups that had specialty things, and for us they just treat it like that. But the anti-Christian sentiment of the university, that for sure was still around, mainly in terms of high skepticism, not necessarily rude, but high skepticism. So when you bring up something about Jesus' values are important to me, something pretty common in the Christian circle, right? They would say, so I'm not so sure about that. And they challenge you on it, but they wouldn't be shouting in your face. But again, it would be a high skepticism of what the church is. So you are right to assume that a lot of people still fall out of the faith during that time. So what made me buckle down was also it was another effect that happened. So when people would challenge me on it, I actually go, "Oh, this is actually something worth standing for. Interesting. Why do I think it's worth standing for?" And I looked at some of the other Christians who stood up for it in previous years, so throughout history. And they stood up for it because what Jesus did for them is something that freed humanity of its. I mean, we've had sin forever. But to know that you've got a way out, and that Jesus actually made a way out for people, and he continues to do that, and he continues to show grace to people. Like, he hasn't destroyed the United States. That is a big grace. The place we live has not been decimated. We can live here. We can eat. We have access to things. So when I see that, I go, yeah, no, humanity needs redemption. That is the story of humanity. So when people would come up with it as skepticism, some of it was about the actual problems of the church, and I go, you know what? Some of those problems are actually correct, but here is the direction. This is where Christians want to go if they really believe what they do. And that helped a lot, because then they'd understand, okay, you're not trying to force this on me. You're trying to do this for yourself and for anyone who wants to, be in service with Christ. Okay, I can understand that. I've been told my whole life that Christians are a bunch of bigots and they only think for themselves and they blow it on churches and they're hypocrites with what they preach in the pulpit. So for them to actually see it being done, they didn't necessarily criticize, but they did criticize the ideas at first every time, because they're so used to people that say they believe one thing and do another, and they see it in public, and then they go, okay, that guy doesn't actually believe what he's talking about. So that's where that skepticism came from. And I think for anyone who's watching that's a Christian, just having what you say, what you do, what you think, make sure it lines up. People will see that.
Yeah.
And then you'll be going the right direction. People may still think they'll be skeptical of who you are. That's fine. That would be at least a good start.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, that's how a lot of that came up. But you're absolutely right now. The radicals have definitely taken over more of the university, and it's approaching the STEM fields. Now, good news is, when you go in as a visitor, so I went in as a visitor recently in 2019 before COVID, and then I did it on Zoom this year too. You'd be amazed when people see genuine folk, they still want that.
Yeah.
So you can break through. The good news is it's not all hive mind where they won't listen to anything. At least in the STEM fields, if you come in with competence, a genuine spirit, you hear them out, address their problems, dude, they're going to be happy. They're going to be very happy you're there.
And I think it's really healthy, like you said, people being a skeptical Christianity or whatever. I think that's a normal and a healthy reaction, because it gives you the opportunity to. If they're somewhat pliable, it gives you opportunity to maybe speak to them, and not that we're always out to try to change people's minds, but it's always good to stand somewhere. And if people see that, yeah, this guy's for real, he has a really strong point right here. People will follow it. Like I said, it's not necessarily that people always have to agree with what you're saying, or I think skepticism is healthy. I think it's good for people to kind of, I don't know about this guy, but if you keep coming back, you're always saying the same person. You always stand in your same values. I think that's where lead by example kind of comes in, and a lot of people, man, this guy is awesome. I kind of like how his life is, and I think that can persuade people more than people just talking and acting completely different than what they're how they're preaching. And I think that's where a lot of us lose credibility when it comes to God. I mean, including myself. I mean, sometimes I mean I don't always have the correct language. I mean, I do cuss sometimes. I do. I mean, get upset, and sometimes it gets the worst of me. But deep inside, I mean, I do have my core beliefs. I do know who I am, and I do know what I stand for. Um, uh, e- Even like going back again to freedom of speech, I would I wouldn't try to censor or shut anyone up, even if I 100% disagree on what they're saying. Same thing with guns. I don't even care that much. I mean, I own a 9 millimeter and a shotgun. I really don't even care to when I go out walking. I don't even care to take them with me. But I believe that people should have the right to own them. I believe that people, to me, that's freedom. I come from a country where we actually had to use them to defend ourselves. Our life depended on having those weapons. Um, and sometimes you did have to use them and you did have to fight to survive. And so, from that perspective, if you lose your freedom of speech, if you lose your ability to defend yourself, if you lose your core moral values, you lost everything, in my opinion. And I think that's why it's so critical. And I appreciate the fact that we had this conversation because, like I said, I see what's on the other side, and I kind of see the trend, kind of where we're headed, and where we're going to go next. I mean, I had the hope coming to the United States to survive starvation, to survive violence, to survive a oppressive government. Where are we going to go next?
Yeah,
And
$1 million question.
yeah, and like I say, we can't lose what we have, uh, and I think that's going back to family values and just strong work ethic values. I think it's so essential for us to keep what we have and fight to preserve what it was passed down to us. Yeah.
Agreed. Enrique, did you have any other remarks you wanted to put in for the podcast today? That's my last question for you.
No, like I was saying, I just want to tell you thank you so much for facilitating this session. I think it was awesome. I don't even know how long I've been blabbering here, but it's it seems like it happened just a couple minutes ago. I have really enjoyed it. I appreciate what you're doing, and then like you say, I really enjoy working with you. You're an awesome guy, and it's nice to have someone uh, kind of we both uh, had the same family values, and it's nice to meet people like that. It's nice to have people you have the stuff in common, and like that I had the utmost respect for you, and like I say, you're my go-to guy when I'm really in need to find some questions on a different issue we're having at work. So you've been a blessing to us, and I really appreciate you.
The feeling is mutual, Enrique, and I'm very happy that it turned out that way, because so many times, I mean, just like there's a lot of criticism that happens in our line of work, and it's amazing to see what happens when both parties, like you and me, both working together, and then all of a sudden it's, well, a lot of that conflict just went away, and there's a mutual respect that came from it that, again, I find unprecedented. Because usually it doesn't work like that. Usually it's people disagree, and then it gets done, and then there's some level of conflict that remains indefinitely. So
Yeah.
your compliments are well received, and thank you very much for being on here.
Well, thank you, Jacob.
Cool. With that all wrapped up, guys, thanks again for watching. I'm gonna put some links down below for the timestamps, and I'll see if I can find that video you were talking about the war in Mexico in 1926. I'll make sure to put that down in the description below. So thanks again, everyone, for watching.
Thank you, Jacob.